The bullet shattered the ICU window at 11:47 p.m., and Emma Hayes didn't flinch. Glass sprayed across the floor like rain, alarms screaming in 3 different pitches, but her hand stayed steady on the chest compression. Blood pooled under the gurney. The patient, a soldier, maybe 22, had a sucking chest wound and maybe 90 seconds left. Outside, gunfire cracked in short, controlled bursts. Someone was hunting. Emma kept counting compressions. 18, 19, 20. A doctor sprinted past her, white coat flapping, headed for the stairwell. Another followed. The lights flickered. Emma reached for the scalpel without looking up, her fingers moving like they'd done this 1,000 times in places where hesitation meant death. Because they had. And the people who were about to storm through those doors had no idea who they were really dealing with. If you want to see how far a ghost can come back from the dead, stay with me until the end. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. And hit that like button if you believe some people are too dangerous to stay buried. The night shift at St. Alden Medical Center in Brookvale usually meant stabilizing drunks, stitching up bar fights, and keeping the elderly from coding before dawn. Emma Hayes had worked there for 8 months, and in that time she'd learned that nobody really looked at her. Not the doctors, not the other nurses. She was furniture. Competent furniture, maybe, but nothing worth remembering. She preferred it that way. At 10:15 p.m., she was restocking Trauma Bay 2 when Dr. Marcus Landry walked in, trailing 2 residents like ducklings. He didn't acknowledge her, just started barking orders about an incoming GSW case, pointing at monitors, checking equipment Emma had already prepped an hour ago. She stepped aside, made herself small. One of the residents, young guy, fresh out of med school, name tag read Klein, nearly knocked her into the supply cart. "Watch it," he muttered, like she'd been in his way. Emma said nothing, just moved to the corner and logged the inventory on her tablet. Landry didn't even notice she existed until he needed something. "Nurse Celine, now." She handed him the bag before he finished the sentence. He took it without looking at her, kept talking to Klein about intubation angles. Emma had already laid out the intubation kit 10 minutes ago. Landry found it, paused for half a second like he was surprised, then moved on. No acknowledgement, no thanks. That was fine. She didn't need thanks. The GSW case came in at 10:52. 28-year-old male, 2 bullets in the abdomen, pressure dropping fast. Landry took control, snapping orders, strutting around the bay like he was filming a reality show. Emma worked the periphery, monitoring vitals, adjusting IV drips, keeping the crash cart ready. She saw the bleed before Landry did, saw the pressure differential, saw the patient starting to circle the drain. "Doctor, he's dropping." "I can see that, nurse," Landry snapped. "Just keep up with me." She bit her tongue, watched him fumble with the clamps, watched him overcorrect. The patient crashed 30 seconds later. Landry got him back, barely, then spent 5 minutes explaining to the residents why it wasn't his fault. Emma cleaned up the blood, reset the bay, and clocked out at midnight without a word to anyone. In the locker room, she changed out of her scrubs and into a hoodie and jeans. Her locker was sparse. No photos, no decorations. Just a spare set of clothes and a gym bag she never opened. She caught her reflection in the mirror, dark hair pulled back tight, eyes that didn't give anything away, a face people forgot the moment she left the room. Perfect. She walked out through the employee exit, past the smoking area where a couple of orderlies were complaining about overtime. One of them nodded at her. She nodded back. No names exchanged. That was the extent of her social life at St. Alden. The parking lot was half empty, sodium lights buzzing overhead. Her car was a 12-year-old Honda that started on the 3rd try. She sat in the driver's seat for a moment, hands on the wheel, letting the silence settle. Then she drove home to a 1-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood where nobody asked questions. Inside, the place was almost empty. A couch, a table, a bed. No TV, no pictures on the walls. She microwaved something that claimed to be lasagna, ate half of it standing at the counter, then dumped the rest. She didn't taste it anyway. At 1:30 a.m., she lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Sleep didn't come easy. It never did. She listened to the city outside, sirens in the distance, someone arguing 3 floors down, the hum of traffic that never really stopped. Eventually, her eyes closed. She dreamed about sand and smoke and voices screaming her name. The next shift started at 6 p.m. Emma showed up at 5:45, like always, changed into scrubs, checked the schedule, trauma rotation again. She didn't mind. Trauma was predictable in its chaos. People came in broken, you put them back together, they either lived or they didn't. Clean math. Landry was already in the ER, holding court with a couple of nurses who laughed at his jokes. Emma walked past without slowing. He didn't notice. She set up her assigned bays, checked the med carts, ran through the protocols in her head. Routine. Invisible. At 7:23 p.m., the first call came in. Multi-vehicle accident on the interstate. 6 incoming. Emma moved into position. The ambulances started arriving 8 minutes later, one after another, sirens wailing, paramedics shouting handoffs. Landry took the worst case, a middle-aged woman with a flail chest. Emma got a teenager with a compound fracture and a scalp lack that looked worse than it was. She worked fast, cleaned the wound, prepped for suturing, kept the kid calm while his parents freaked out in the hallway. Landry was 3 bays over, yelling at a resident who'd missed a vein on the second try. Emma tuned him out, focused on her work. The kid's name was Jason, 17. Scared out of his mind, but trying not to show it. "You're doing great," Emma said quietly, threading the needle. "Doesn't feel great," Jason muttered. "It will. Give it a week." She finished the sutures in 4 minutes, bandaged him up, checked his vitals one more time. Stable. His parents rushed in the second she stepped back, crying, hugging him. Emma slipped out before they could thank her. Didn't need it. Didn't want it. The rest of the night blurred. More patients, more blood, more controlled chaos. Landry made a big show of saving the flail chest, strutting around afterward like he'd just cured cancer. Emma restocked, cleaned, and disappeared into the background. At 11:38 p.m., the second call came in. Inbound trauma, gunshot wound to the chest. Military convoy, serious condition, ETA 4 minutes. Emma's hand stopped for just a second, then she moved. She was in Trauma Bay 1 when they wheeled him in. Male, mid-20s, tactical vest half removed, blood soaking through the field dressings. His breath came in short, wet gasps. Tension pneumothorax, maybe worse. The paramedics were rattling off vitals, but Emma was already reading the scene. Entrance wound left side, no exit wound visible. Lung collapsed. Possibly nicked the subclavian. Landry swept in, residents trailing. "All right, let's see what we've got." Emma was already moving. She grabbed the chest tube kit, prepped the site, had the scalpel in hand before Landry even finished his sentence. He turned, saw her, and his face went red. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" "Tension pneumo," Emma said, not looking up. "He's got maybe 2 minutes." "Step back, nurse. I'll handle this." She didn't step back. She made the incision clean and fast, slid the tube in with the kind of precision that didn't come from textbooks. The patient's breath evened out almost immediately, pressure stabilized. Emma taped the tube, checked the seal, and stepped aside. Landry stared at her. The residents stared at her. One of the paramedics, older guy, looked former military, stared at her like he'd seen a ghost. "You don't touch patients without my authorization," Landry hissed. "You're a nurse. Stay in your lane." Emma met his eyes. Didn't blink. "He'd be dead in your lane." Landry's jaw worked. He looked like he wanted to scream, but there were too many witnesses. Instead, he turned to the residents. "Monitor him. I want labs, imaging, full workup. Now." They scattered. Landry shot Emma one last glare, then walked out. Emma cleaned up, logged the procedure, and moved to the next bay like nothing had happened. But the paramedic was still watching her. She felt it. That old instinct. The one that said, "You've been made." She didn't look at him. Just kept working. He didn't approach. Not yet. The soldier, she'd heard one of the residents say his name was Sergeant Calloway, was moved to the ICU an hour later. Stable, but critical. Emma's shift ended at midnight, but she stayed an extra 20 minutes to make sure the handoff was clean. When she finally headed to the locker room, the paramedic was gone. She told herself it didn't matter. The next day she wasn't scheduled, but she got a call at 2 p.m. from the hospital administrator. Terse. Professional. Cold. "Ms. Hayes, we need you to come in for a meeting today, 4 o'clock. Emma didn't ask why. She already knew. She showed up at 3:55, wearing jeans and a plain jacket. The admin office was on the 3rd floor, all glass and fake plants. The administrator, a woman named Diane Cortez, mid-50s, perpetually annoyed, was waiting with Landry and another man Emma didn't recognize. Tall gray suit, hospital board name tag. Cortez didn't waste time. Ms. Hayes, Dr. Landry has filed a formal complaint regarding your conduct during last night's trauma case. Emma said nothing. Landry leaned forward. You performed a procedure without authorization. You overstepped your role. You put this hospital at risk. I saved his life, Emma said. You don't get to make that call, Landry snapped. You're not a doctor. The man in the suit cleared his throat. Ms. Hayes, we appreciate your initiative, but protocol exists for a reason. You can't just bypass the chain of command because you think you know better. Emma looked at him. The patient had a collapsed lung. He was coding. I had the training. I used it. What training? Cortez asked, her tone sharp. Emma didn't answer. Cortez glanced at Landry, then back at her. Your file says you completed a standard nursing program. Nothing about surgical procedures, nothing about advanced trauma. So where exactly did you get this training? Does it matter? Emma said quietly. He's alive. It matters, the suit said, because if you don't have the credentials to back up what you did, then you committed a serious violation, and this hospital can't afford that liability. Landry smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. You're lucky we're not pressing charges, but you're suspended, 2 weeks, unpaid, and if you pull anything like that again, you're done. Emma stood. Is that all? Cortez looked almost surprised. You're not going to argue? No. She walked out. Behind her, she heard Landry mutter something smug. She didn't care, didn't look back, just left the building, got in her car, and drove home. 2 weeks. Fine. She'd disappear for 2 weeks. Wouldn't be the first time. But that night, at 11:47 p.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then something, instinct maybe, made her pick up. Hayes? The voice on the other end was rough, urgent. The paramedic from the night before. You need to get to St. Alden. Now. I'm suspended. I don't care. Calloway's in trouble. Armed men just entered the hospital. They're heading for the ICU. Emma's blood went cold. How many? At least 4. Maybe more. Hospital security's down. Police are 10 minutes out. Hayes. She hung up. Grabbed her keys. Drove. She made it to St. Alden in 6 minutes, parked in the emergency lane, and went in through the side entrance. The lobby was chaos. People running, alarms blaring. She heard gunfire, short bursts, controlled, coming from the upper floors. Emma moved fast, took the stairs, hit the ICU floor and saw the carnage immediately. 2 security guards down, blood on the walls. A nurse crouched behind the desk, sobbing. Emma grabbed her. Where's Calloway? Room 12. There. Emma didn't wait. She moved down the hall, low and fast, the old training kicking in like it had never left. She reached room 12 just as the door burst open. 2 men in tactical gear, rifles raised. They saw her, raised their weapons. And Emma Hayes smiled. Because after 8 months of playing invisible, of swallowing insults and biting her tongue and pretending to be nothing, she was finally allowed to be exactly who she was. She moved. The first man went down before he even saw her move. Emma's elbow caught him in the throat, a sharp upward strike that collapsed his windpipe. He dropped, gurgling, clutching his neck. The second man swung his rifle around, but Emma was already inside his guard. She grabbed the barrel, yanked it down and to the left, used his own momentum to slam him face first into the doorframe. His nose shattered with a wet crunch. She stripped the rifle from his hands, reversed it, and cracked the stock across his temple. He went down like a sack of cement. 3 seconds. 2 men. No hesitation. Emma stepped over them into room 12. Calloway was still in the bed, barely conscious, tubes running out of his chest. A third man stood by the IV pole, syringe in hand. He froze when he saw her, looked at the rifle in her hands, looked at his 2 partners bleeding in the hallway. Don't, Emma said. He lunged for his sidearm. Emma shot him in the thigh. He screamed, collapsed, clutching the wound. She kicked his gun away, checked Calloway's vitals. Still breathing, still stable. She pulled the syringe from the third man's hand, clear liquid, unmarked, and pocketed it. Stay down, she told the man on the floor. Bleed quiet. She moved back into the hallway. The nurse behind the desk was staring at her, eyes wide, mouth open. Emma didn't have time to explain. She heard boots pounding up the stairwell, more of them, coming fast. She grabbed one of the unconscious men's radios, clipped it to her belt, and dragged both bodies into room 12. Shut the door. Locked it. The radio crackled. 3 and 4, status? Emma pulled the bodies behind the bed, out of sight from the door window. Checked the rifle, full mag, one in the chamber. She moved to the corner of the room, angled so she could see the hallway through the narrow window without being seen. 3 and 4, respond. Footsteps in the hall. 2 men, moving cautious now. They stopped outside room 12, peered through the window. Saw Calloway in the bed, alone. One of them tried the door. Locked. He muttered something to his partner, then raised his rifle. Emma shot through the door. 2 rounds, center mass. The glass spiderwebbed. The man staggered back, hit the opposite wall, slid down. His partner opened fire, bullets punching through the door, chewing up the frame. Emma dropped flat, rolled left, came up by the window. The second man was reloading. She put 1 round through the glass, caught him in the shoulder. He spun, went down hard. The radio exploded with chatter. Shots fired, I see you! All units, converge! Emma grabbed Calloway's bed, unlocked the wheels, and shoved it toward the door. She yanked it open, kicked the wounded man's rifle away, and pushed the bed into the hallway. Calloway's eyes fluttered open, glassy and confused. Stay with me, Emma said. She pushed the bed toward the emergency stairs at the far end of the hall. Behind her, she heard more boots, more voices. She didn't look back, just kept moving. The bed rattled over debris, over spent casings, over blood. Calloway groaned, tried to speak. Don't talk, just breathe. She hit the stairwell door with her shoulder, shoved the bed through. The stairs were narrow, concrete, harsh fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. No way to wheel the bed down. Emma locked the wheels, grabbed Calloway under the arms, and hauled him off the mattress. He was dead weight, barely conscious, tubes pulling free from his chest. She got him into a fireman's carry, ignoring the protest in her shoulders, and started down the stairs. 2 flights. Her legs burned. Calloway's blood soaked into her shirt. She could hear them above her now, voices echoing in the stairwell. She's got the target! Southwest stairs! Emma kicked open the 2nd floor door, stumbled into the hallway. This floor was quieter, surgery wing, mostly empty this time of night. She moved fast, looking for a room, any room. Found an empty OR, shouldered the door open, and laid Calloway on the table. His breathing was ragged, shallow. She checked his chest tube, still in place but leaking. She grabbed gauze from a supply cart, packed the wound, and taped it down hard. The radio crackled again. 2nd floor. She's on the 2nd floor. Emma looked around the OR. 1 door in, no other exits. She was trapped. She checked the rifle. 10 rounds left. Not enough. She moved to the door, cracked it open, peered into the hallway. 3 men, moving in formation, rifles up. Professional, trained. They weren't just thugs. Emma let the door close, stepped back, thought fast. The OR had a scrub sink in the corner, cabinets full of sterile instruments, an anesthesia cart. She grabbed a scalpel, pocketed it, pulled the anesthesia cart in front of the door, flipped the main breaker on the wall. The lights died. Emergency lighting kicked in, dim, red, barely enough to see. She heard them outside. Voices low, coordinating. Then the door handle turned. The cart scraped as they pushed. Emma raised the rifle, aimed at the gap. The door opened 6 inches. A rifle barrel poked through. Emma grabbed it, yanked hard. The man on the other side stumbled forward, off balance. She shot him through the gap. He dropped. The door slammed shut. Silence. Then gunfire. They lit up the door, bullets punching through metal and wood, ricocheting off tile. Emma hit the floor, crawled behind the OR table. Calloway groaned above her. She grabbed his arm, pulled him down. They landed hard, Calloway gasping, Emma covering him with her body. The shooting stopped. Footsteps. The door creaked open. Emma stayed low, rifle trained on the entrance. A shadow moved in the red light. She fired twice. Missed. The shadow ducked back. "Gas her," someone said. A canister bounced into the room, spewing white smoke. Tear gas. Emma felt her eyes start to burn, her throat seize. She ripped off a piece of gauze, soaked it with saline from the IV bag, and tied it over her nose and mouth. Did the same for Calloway. He was coughing, choking. She pulled him toward the scrub sink, turned on the water, shoved his face under the stream. "Breathe through your nose," she hissed. Slow. The gas thickened. Emma's eyes were streaming, her lungs on fire. She could barely see. The door opened wider, boots on tile. She raised the rifle, fired blind. Heard a grunt, a curse. Fired again. Click. Empty. She dropped the rifle, grabbed the scalpel, and moved. The first man came through the smoke, rifle sweeping. Emma went low, slashed across his thigh. He screamed, stumbled. She drove the scalpel into his side, between the ribs, twisted. He went down. She took his rifle, checked the mag. Half full. A second man appeared. Emma shot him twice, center mass. He dropped. The smoke was everywhere now, choking, blinding. She couldn't see Calloway anymore, couldn't see the door. She fired at movement, at shadows. Someone fired back. A round grazed her arm, white-hot pain. She bit back a scream, kept shooting. Then the smoke started to clear. Not naturally. Someone had turned on the ventilation. Emma blinked through the tears, saw the doorway. Empty. She moved to it, rifle up, checked the hall. Bodies. Blood. No movement. The radio crackled. "All units, fall back. Repeat, fall back. We've got incoming." Emma froze. Incoming. That meant the building shook. A deep, rhythmic thrum. Helicopters. She moved to the window, looked out. Spotlights cut through the night, blinding white, sweeping the hospital grounds. Black helicopters, military markings, descending fast. Ropes dropped. Figures rappelled down, hitting the pavement in perfect formation. Operators. Real ones. Emma turned back to Calloway. He was slumped against the wall, barely breathing. She grabbed him, got him onto her shoulder again, and moved. The hallway was chaos now. Hospital staff running, screaming, trying to evacuate. Emma pushed through them, heading for the main stairwell. She heard boots behind her, shouts. Not the attackers. Different voices. American accents. Military cadence. "Freeze! Drop the weapon!" Emma stopped, turned slow. 3 operators, full tactical gear, rifles trained on her. She lowered Calloway to the floor, raised her hands. "He needs medical," she said. "Now." One of the operators moved forward, knelt by Calloway, checked his pulse. "He's critical. Get a medic up here." Another operator stepped closer to Emma. "Who are you?" Emma met his eyes, saw the recognition there, saw the confusion. He was older, maybe 40, scar across his jaw. His name tape read Briggs. "Nurse," Emma said. "I work here." Briggs stared at her, at the blood on her hands, at the rifle she'd dropped, at the bodies in the OR behind her. "Bullshit. Believe what you want," Emma said. "Just get him out of here." A medic rushed up, started working on Calloway. Briggs didn't move. He was still staring at Emma like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "What's your name?" "Hayes." "First name?" Emma hesitated. "Emma." Briggs went pale. He stepped back, keyed his radio. "I need command on this channel. Now." The radio crackled. A new voice, deeper, authoritative. "Go ahead." "Sir, we have a situation. We've got the target, but—" Briggs looked at Emma again. "We've got someone else here. Civilian. She says her name is Emma Hayes." Silence on the radio. Long, heavy silence. Then, "Confirm identity." Briggs pulled out a tablet, swiped through screens, then held it up to Emma's face. Facial recognition. Scanning. A few seconds later, the tablet beeped. Briggs looked at the screen. His jaw dropped. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. The radio crackled again. "Briggs, what's the status?" Briggs swallowed hard. "Sir, it's her. It's Valkyrie 6. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma watched Briggs, watched the other operators turn to stare at her. One of them took a step back like she was a bomb about to go off. "That's not possible," the voice on the radio said. "Valkyrie 6 is KIA, confirmed dead 3 years ago." "I'm looking at her right now, sir," Briggs said. "It's her." Emma said nothing, just stood there, hands still raised, blood drying on her skin. The voice on the radio changed. Colder. Harder. "Detain her. Full lockdown. Nobody talks to her until I get there. Sir. That's an order, Captain. Briggs looked at Emma. There was something in his eyes now. Not fear, respect. I'm sorry, he said quietly. 2 operators moved in, zip-tied her wrists. Emma didn't resist, didn't fight. Just let them secure her, pat her down, take the scalpel from her pocket. They led her down the stairs, through the lobby, out into the night. The helicopters were still overhead, rotors thumping. Military vehicles lined the street. News vans were pulling up, reporters shouting questions. Emma ignored all of it. They put her in the back of an armored transport. No windows, just a bench and a guard with a rifle. The door slammed shut. The transport started moving. Emma leaned back against the cold metal wall, closed her eyes. It had been 3 years since she'd heard that call sign. 3 years since she'd been anyone other than Emma Hayes, invisible nurse, nobody worth noticing. 3 years since she'd walked away from a burning helicopter in a desert she wasn't supposed to survive. And now it was all coming back. The transport drove for 20 minutes, then stopped. The door opened. The guard gestured for her to get out. Emma stepped into a military airfield, floodlights blazing, soldiers everywhere. They led her across the tarmac to a hangar. Inside, the space was converted into a command center, computers, monitors, maps on the walls. A dozen personnel working stations, all of them glancing at her as she was brought in. At the center of the room stood a man in uniform, tall, graying hair, 3 stars on his shoulder. Emma recognized him immediately. General Alan Kovach, her former commanding officer. Kovach stared at her for a long moment. Then he waved the guards away. Leave us. They hesitated. Sir, out. They left. The door closed. Emma and Kovach stood alone in the middle of the hangar. The silence stretched. You're supposed to be dead, Kovach said finally. I know. We buried you. Full honors, flag-draped coffin. Your name is on the memorial wall at Fort Bragg. I know. Kovach stepped closer. So what the hell are you doing in a hospital in Brookvale playing nurse? Emma met his eyes. Living? Living. Kovach laughed, but there was no humor in it. You disappeared 3 years ago. No contact, no communication. We thought you were dead, and you were just… what? Hiding? Yes. Why? Emma didn't answer. Kovach's expression hardened. You were the best combat medic I ever had. You saved more lives in 2 tours than most people save in a lifetime. You were supposed to come home a hero. Instead, you vanished. And now you show up in the middle of a firefight, taking down trained operators like it's a Tuesday. So I'm going to ask you one more time, Hayes. Why? Emma looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the uniform, the stars, the weight of command. And she wondered if he knew, if he'd been part of it, if he'd signed off on the operation that killed her team and left her for dead. Because the people who erased me are still out there, she said quietly. And I wasn't ready to face them. Kovach's expression changed. Something flickered in his eyes. What are you talking about? Karachi, Emma said. Operation Blacklight. You remember that one, General? Kovach went very still. That operation is classified. That operation was a slaughter, Emma said. We were sent in to extract a high-value target. Intel said the building was clear. It wasn't. We walked into an ambush, 12 operators. Only 1 made it out. You, Kovach said. Me. The official report said, The official report is a lie, Emma cut him off. We were set up. Someone fed bad intel. Someone wanted that team dead. And when I survived, they declared me KIA to bury the evidence. Kovach stared at her. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. You have proof? Emma smiled, cold and sharp. I didn't. But now I do. She reached into her pocket, slowly, carefully, and pulled out the syringe she'd taken from the attacker in Calloway's room. She held it up. This was about to go into Sergeant Calloway's IV. I'm guessing it's not saline. Kovach took the syringe, turned it over in his hands. What does Calloway have to do with Blacklight? I don't know yet, Emma said, but someone wanted him dead bad enough to hit a hospital in the middle of Brookvale. That's not random. That's targeted. And I'm betting if you dig into his service record, you'll find a connection. Kovach looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned, walked to a computer terminal, and started typing. The screen lit up. Emma watched as he pulled up Calloway's file, scrolled through, stopped. Son of a bitch, Kovacs muttered. What? Kovacs turned the screen toward her. Calloway was part of a special operations unit deployed to the Middle East 2 years ago. His team was investigating irregularities in contracted supply chains, weapons, equipment, intelligence. They were getting close to something big. Then his convoy was ambushed 3 days ago. He was the only survivor. Emma felt something cold settle in her chest. Just like blacklight. Just like blacklight, Kovacs agreed. So what was he carrying? Kovacs typed again. According to the report filed by the paramedics who brought him in, they found a flash drive in his vest, encrypted. They turned it over to base command. Where is it now? That's the problem, Kovacs said. It's missing. Disappeared from the evidence locker 6 hours ago. Emma closed her eyes. Someone on the inside. Someone with access, Kovacs said. Someone who knew Calloway survived and wanted to finish the job before he could talk. And that someone just sent a kill team into a civilian hospital, Emma said. Which means they're desperate. Which means whatever's on that drive is big enough to risk exposure. Kovacs nodded slowly. I need to make some calls, pull some strings. If you're right about this, I am. If you're right, Kovacs continued, then we're looking at a conspiracy that goes deep, and people in very high places are going to fight back. Hard. Emma looked at him. You believe me? Kovacs hesitated, then he nodded. I do. But belief isn't enough. We need evidence. Real evidence. And we need to move fast because whoever's behind this knows you're alive now. They're going to come for you. Let them, Emma said. Hayes, I spent 3 years hiding, General, playing dead. Watching people like Landry talk down to me, push me around, treat me like I don't matter. I'm done hiding. Kovacs studied her. What do you want? I want my name back, Emma said. I want my record corrected. And I want the people who killed my team to burn. Kovacs was quiet for a moment. Then he extended his hand. Then let's get to work. Emma shook it. For the next 3 hours, Kovacs made calls, pulled files, brought in trusted personnel. Emma sat in a corner of the hangar, watching, listening. Pieces started to fall into place. Blacklight, Calloway's convoy, the missing flash drive, all of it connected by a single thread. Someone was running illegal operations, siphoning resources, covering their tracks with bodies. And Emma was the ghost they thought they'd buried. Around 4 a.m., a junior officer approached Kovacs with a tablet. He read it, frowned, then looked at Emma. We found the flash drive. Emma stood. Where? Private residence. Registered to a contractor named Mitchell Voss, former Special Forces, now works as a security consultant. Has clearance at multiple military installations. Is he one of yours? Emma asked. Not anymore, Kovacs said. He left the service 5 years ago under questionable circumstances, but he still has friends in high places. Where is he now? Kovacs checked the tablet. Unknown, but we've got a warrant for his residence. We're moving in 20 minutes. I'm coming with you, Emma said. Absolutely not. You're a civilian. I'm Valkyrie Six, but, Emma said, and if this is connected to Blacklight, then I have more right to be there than anyone. Kovacs looked like he wanted to argue. Then he sighed. Fine, but you stay back. Observe only. No heroics. Emma nodded. She didn't mention that she'd never been good at following orders. They loaded into 3 vehicles, 2 armored transports and 1 command SUV. Emma rode in the SUV with Kovacs and Captain Briggs. The drive took 30 minutes, cutting through empty streets toward the outskirts of Brookvale. Voss's residence was a sprawling property behind a gate, surrounded by trees. The convoy stopped half a mile out, the operators deployed on foot, moving Sheelant through the darkness. Emma followed with Kovacs, staying low. The house was dark. No lights. No movement. The lead team reached the front door, breached it. Flashlights swept through the interior. Emma heard the all clear over the radio. They moved in. The house was empty, but not abandoned. Emma walked through the rooms, taking in the details. Maps on the walls. Encrypted laptops. File cabinets full of documents. This wasn't just a residence, it was a base of operations. Kovacs found the flash drive on a desk in the study. He held it up, turned it over. Got it. Emma moved to the file cabinet, started pulling folders. Names, dates, operations. She saw Blacklight, saw Calloway's convoy, saw a dozen other incidents, all marked as resolved, all with casualty lists. And then she saw a name that made her blood run cold. General Marcus Hayward, Deputy Director of Operations, one of the most powerful men in the military. "General," Emma said quietly. Kovacs looked over, saw the file in her hands, saw the name. His face went pale. "That's not possible." "It's here," Emma said, in black and white. Hayward authorized blacklight. Hayward signed off on Calloway's convoy route. Hayward. The window exploded. Glass rained down. Emma hit the floor, rolled behind the desk. Gunfire ripped through the room. Kovacs went down, clutching his shoulder. Briggs returned fire, shouting into his radio. "Contact! We're under fire! Multiple shooters!" Emma grabbed Kovacs, dragged him behind the couch. Blood poured from his shoulder. She ripped off her jacket, packed the wound. "Stay down!" The shooting intensified. Emma looked around, saw the operators falling back, pinned down. Whoever was attacking knew what they were doing, knew the layout, knew they were coming. They'd been set up, again. Emma grabbed a rifle from a fallen operator, checked the mag, and moved to the window. She saw muzzle flashes in the tree line, at least 6 shooters, maybe more. She fired back, controlled bursts, forcing them to take cover. Briggs was on the radio calling for backup. "We need air support, now!" Emma's mind raced. They had the flash drive, they had the files, but if they didn't get out, none of it mattered. She looked at Kovacs. He was pale, losing blood fast. "We need to move," she said. "Can't," Kovacs gasped. "They've got us surrounded." Emma looked at the files scattered across the floor, looked at the flash drive in Kovacs' hand, looked at the operators fighting for their lives. And she made a decision. She grabbed the flash drive from Kovacs, shoved it in her pocket, and ran for the back door. Briggs shouted after her, but she didn't stop. She burst into the backyard, saw 2 shooters moving in, shot them both before they could react, kept running, hit the tree line. Bullets chased her, snapping branches, kicking up dirt. She didn't look back. She ran through the trees, lungs burning, legs screaming. Behind her, she heard the firefight continue, heard the helicopters arriving, heard Briggs shouting her name, but she kept running, because she had what they needed, and if she got caught, it would all be for nothing. She broke through the trees onto a road, saw headlights approaching. A black SUV, moving fast. She raised the rifle. The SUV screeched to a halt. The door opened, and Mitchell Voss stepped out, hands raised, smiling. "Hello, Valkyrie," he said. "We need to talk." Emma's finger tightened on the trigger. Voss didn't move. Just stood there in the headlights, hands up, that smile still plastered across his face like they were old friends meeting for coffee. "You've got 3 seconds to tell me why I shouldn't put a round through your skull," Emma said. "Because I'm the only person who can prove Hayward set you up," Voss replied. "And because if you shoot me, you'll never know who else was in on it." Emma didn't lower the rifle. "You worked for him." Past tense, I worked for him, until I realized he was feeding his own people to the wolves to cover his tracks. Now I'm what you might call highly motivated to see him go down. Behind Emma, gunfire still crackled through the trees. Helicopters thumped overhead. She had maybe 2 minutes before Kovacs' people swept the area and found her standing here with the man they'd just raided. "Talk fast," she said. Voss lowered his hands slowly. "Hayward's been running off-book operations for the last 6 years. Black budget stuff, arms deals, intelligence trafficking, wet work. He uses legitimate missions as cover, then burns the teams afterward to eliminate witnesses. Blacklight was one of 12 operations where he wiped the slate clean, and you helped him." "I did what I was told," Voss said, "until Karachi, until I saw what happened to your team. That's when I started keeping insurance. The flash drive. One of them. I've got 3 more stashed in different locations. Full accounting, names, dates, transactions. Enough to put Hayward and half a dozen other high-ranking officers in federal prison for the rest of their lives." Emma studied him. Voss was early 40s, fit, military-bearing even in civilian clothes. His eyes were sharp, calculating. He wasn't panicking, wasn't sweating. He'd planned this. "Why come to me?" Emma asked. "Because you're dead," Voss said. "Officially. Which means you can move without being tracked. And because I know what Hayward did to you, I know you want him to burn as much as I do. What's stopping me from taking that drive and turning you over to Kovacs? Nothing. Except Kovacs is bleeding out back there. and his team is pinned down by shooters I didn't send, which means Hayward already knows about this raid, which means he's got people inside Kovac's unit, and if you go back there, you're walking into a trap. Emma glanced toward the trees. The gunfire had slowed but hadn't stopped. She heard Briggs shouting orders, heard the helicopters repositioning. "Get in the car," Voss said, "or stay here and get swept up with the rest of them. Your call." Emma hesitated. Every instinct screamed not to trust him, but he was right about one thing. If Hayward had people inside Kovac's unit, going back was suicide. She lowered the rifle. "You try anything, I'll kill you." Understood. She got in the passenger seat. Voss slid behind the wheel and gunned the engine. The SUV peeled out, tires screeching, and accelerated down the dark road. Emma kept the rifle across her lap, pointed at Voss. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere Hayward's people won't think to look." They drove in silence for 10 minutes, cutting through back roads, avoiding highways. Emma watched the mirrors. No pursuit. Voss drove like he'd done this before. Smooth, controlled, always 2 steps ahead. Finally, he pulled into an industrial park on the edge of town. Rows of warehouses, most of them dark. He parked behind one, killed the engine. "This is it?" Emma said. "Safe house, off the books. I've been using it for the last 6 months." They got out. Voss unlocked a side door and led her inside. The warehouse was empty except for a makeshift office in the back corner. Desk, laptop, cot, mini fridge. Spartan, functional. Voss sat at the desk, opened the laptop. "I've been compiling everything for months. Financial records, mission logs, communications. Hayward was careful, but he wasn't perfect. He left a trail." Emma stood behind him, watching the screen. Files scrolled past, dozens of them. She recognized some of the operation names. Others were new. "How many people has he killed?" she asked quietly. "Directly? Maybe 20. Indirectly? Hundreds. Every black op he ran, every team he burned, those deaths are on him." Emma felt something hard and cold settle in her chest. "And you just went along with it?" Voss stopped typing, didn't turn around. "Yeah, I did. I told myself I was following orders, that it wasn't my call, but that's bullshit, and I know it. I was complicit, and now I'm trying to make it right." "You think turning over some files makes it right?" "No," Voss said. "But it's a start." Emma looked at the screen, saw names, dates, locations, saw her own team listed under blacklight, marked as KYA, saw Calloway's convoy, saw operations she'd never heard of. "Why now?" she asked. "Why wait 6 months to move?" "Because I needed leverage," Voss said. "Hayward's got friends in Congress, in the Pentagon, in Langley. If I'd gone public 6 months ago, I'd be dead in a week and the whole thing would get buried. I needed someone on the inside who could push it through official channels, someone Hayward couldn't touch." Kovac. He's clean, old school, plays by the rules. If I could get this evidence to him, he'd run with it. But I couldn't approach him directly. Hayward would have seen it coming. I needed a catalyst. Emma's jaw tightened. Calloway. Calloway stumbled onto part of the network, started asking questions. Hayward panicked, ordered the hit on his convoy. But Calloway survived, and that flash drive he was carrying? It had routing numbers for some of Hayward's offshore accounts. Not the whole picture, but enough to start connecting dots. "So you used him as bait." Voss finally turned around. "I made sure his convoy route got leaked. I made sure he'd survive. And I made sure the flash drive would end up in evidence where Kovac could find it. I didn't expect Hayward to send a kill team to a civilian hospital, but you didn't stop it either," Emma said. Voss met her eyes. "No, I didn't." Emma raised the rifle. "Give me one reason I shouldn't put you down right now." "Because you need me," Voss said. "Hayward's got resources you can't match. He's got operators, intelligence networks, political cover. You go after him alone, you'll end up in a black site or a shallow grave. But with my intel and Kovac's backing, you've got a shot. Kovac might be dead. Then we find someone else. But the play stays the same. We expose Hayward, we burn him to the ground, and we make sure everyone knows what he did." Emma stared at him, hated that he was right, hated that she needed him, hated that 3 years of hiding had led her right back into the middle of a war she'd tried to leave behind. She lowered the rifle. "Show me everything. For the next 2 hours, Voss walked her through the files. Emma absorbed it all. The operations, the cover-ups, the money trails. It was worse than she'd imagined. Hayward hadn't just been running black ops, he'd been selling intelligence to foreign contractors, skimming funds, eliminating anyone who got too close. And it all led back to one central question. Why? Money, Voss said when she asked. Hayward's got offshore accounts in 6 countries. Over $40 million. He was planning to retire in 2 years, disappear, live like a king somewhere without extradition. And the bodies were just cleanup. Collateral damage, Voss said. In his mind, anyway. Emma's phone buzzed. She pulled it out. Unknown number, she answered. Hey, Zaz. It was Briggs. His voice was tight, strained. Where the hell are you? Safe. How's Kovac? Stable. Medevac got him out 20 minutes ago. But we've got a problem. Hayward's people hit the base, took the original flash drive, killed 2 guards doing it. Emma's blood went cold. When? An hour ago. We're locked down, but it doesn't matter. They got what they came for. Emma looked at Voss. He was already typing, pulling up security feeds. She put the call on speaker. Briggs, listen to me. Hayward's got people inside your unit. You can't trust anyone. I know, Briggs said. Kovac figured that out before he went under. He gave me a list of names. 3 officers. All assigned to his command within the last 6 months. All with direct access to operational intel. Are they contained? 2 of them. The third went dark an hour ago. We think he's the one who grabbed the drive. Emma cursed. Do you have a location? No, but he's got family in the area. We're checking. The line went dead. Emma tried calling back. No signal. She checked the phone. Jammed. Voss looked up from the laptop. We need to move. Now. Why? Because if Hayward's jamming signals in this area, he knows we're here. Emma grabbed the rifle, moved to the window. The industrial park was still dark, still quiet. Then she saw headlights, 2 vehicles coming fast. Back door, Voss said. They ran. Voss grabbed the laptop, shoved it in a bag. Emma covered the exit, rifle up. They hit the alley just as the front door exploded inward. Flashbangs detonated. Smoke poured out. Voss had a motorcycle stashed behind a dumpster. He threw Emma the bag, kick-started the engine. Get on! Emma slung the rifle, climbed on. Voss gunned it. The bike roared to life, tires screeching as they tore out of the alley. Behind them, men poured out of the warehouse. Gunfire erupted. Rounds sparked off the pavement. Voss weaved through the industrial park, taking corners hard. The bike leaning so low, Emma's knee nearly scraped asphalt. They hit the main road, merged into light traffic. The pursuing vehicles were right behind them. Hold on, Voss shouted. He cut across 3 lanes, shot through a red light, and took a hard right into a residential area. The bike screamed down narrow streets, past houses, past parked cars. The SUVs followed, but they were too big, too slow. Voss took another turn, then another, zigzagging through the neighborhood. Finally, he killed the engine and coasted into a covered parking garage. They ducked behind a concrete pillar, waited. The SUVs roared past, kept going. Silence. Emma's heart hammered. Voss was breathing hard, knuckles white on the handlebars. That was too close, he muttered. They knew exactly where we were, Emma said. How? Voss pulled out his phone, checked it. His face went pale. Tracker. In the laptop. What? I thought I'd scrubbed it. Must have missed one. He pulled the laptop out, opened it, started typing. It's embedded in the OS. Been transmitting our location for the last 30 minutes. Emma grabbed the laptop, threw it off the second level of the garage. It shattered on the pavement below. There goes our evidence, Voss said. We've still got the drive I took from Kovac. 1 drive, not enough to bury Hayward. We need the backups. Where are they? Voss hesitated. Distributed. Safety deposit boxes, 3 different banks. Then we get them. It's not that simple. The boxes are coded. Biometric locks. I'm the only one who can open them. So we go together. Emma, Hayward knows I'm alive now. He knows I'm with you. He'll have every bank in the city watched. We walk into one of those places. We're dead. Emma thought fast. What about Calloway? He's still in the hospital, right? Probably. Why? Because he's the key. Hayward sent a kill team for him once. He'll do it again, and when he does, we'll be waiting. Voss stared at her. You want to use him as bait. He's already bait. We just make sure Hayward takes it. Voss was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. All right, but we need backup. Real backup, not Kovacs people. I know someone, Emma said. She pulled out her phone, dialed a number she hadn't called in 3 years. It rang twice. Then a voice answered, rough and familiar. Yeah? It's Valkyrie. Silence. Then, bullshit, Valkyrie's dead. Not yet. I need a favor, Reyes. More silence. Where are you? Brookvale. Jesus, I'm 2 hours out. What do you need? Firepower. Bodies. Someone I can trust. How bad is it? Bad enough that I'm calling you. Reyes laughed, sharp and humorless. All right. Send me a location. I'll bring the crew. Emma gave him the address of a truck stop outside the city. Hung up. Looked at Voss. Who's Reyes? He asked. Someone who owes me his life, Emma said. And who's got no love for people like Hayward. They ditched the bike, stole a car from the garage, old sedan, easy to hotwire, and drove to the truck stop. It was nearly dawn. The place was half full of long-haul drivers grabbing coffee and breakfast. Emma and Voss sat in the car, waiting. Reyes showed up 90 minutes later in a black van, 3 people with him. Emma recognized one, a sniper named Kara, tall and lean, cold eyes. The other 2 were new. Reyes stepped out. He was older now, grayer, but still solid. He saw Emma and grinned. I'll be damned. They shook hands. Reyes pulled her into a quick hug. Heard you got ghosted in Karachi. Guess the reports were wrong. Guess so, Emma said. Reyes looked at Voss. Who's this? Complicated, Emma said. Short version. He's got intel on the people who set up Karachi. We need to keep him alive long enough to use it. Reyes nodded. What's the play? Emma laid it out. Use Calloway to draw Hayward's people into the open. Hit them hard. Extract the intel. Burn Hayward before he could run. Reyes listened, then smiled. I'm in. But we do this my way. No heroics, no last stands. We hit fast, we hit clean, and we disappear before the cavalry shows up. Agreed, Emma said. They spent the next hour planning. Reyes's crew was good. Ex-military, all of them, with skills that ranged from demolitions to electronic warfare. Kara set up overwatch positions around St. Alden. The other 2, brothers named Luis and Carlos, rigged the ICU floor with surveillance and early warning systems. Emma went back inside the hospital, posing as a nurse again. It was surreal, walking those same halls, past the same people who'd ignored her for 8 months. Landry was in the ER, barking orders at residents. He didn't even glance at her. She made her way to the ICU. Calloway was awake now, sitting up, looking pale, but stable. A guard stood outside his door, military police armed. Emma approached, showed her old ID badge. I need to check his vitals, she said. The guard looked her over. You're not on the approved list. Call Captain Briggs. He'll clear it. The guard hesitated, then stepped aside. Emma went in, closed the door. Calloway looked at her. You're the nurse from before. Yeah. They told me you saved my life. Something like that. Calloway studied her. You're not really a nurse, are you? Emma checked his IV, his monitors. Everything stable. What makes you say that? The way you move. The way you cleared that room. I've seen operators work. You're one of them. Emma didn't answer. Who are you? Calloway asked. Someone who's trying to keep you alive, Emma said, and someone who needs your help. With what? The people who hit your convoy are coming back, and when they do, I need you to trust me. Calloway's jaw tightened. What do you need me to do? Emma told him. Calloway listened, his expression hardening. When she finished, he nodded. All right, but after this, I want answers. Real answers. Deal. Emma left the room, nodded to the guard, and walked back out. She met Voss in the parking garage. He's in, she said. Good. Reyes is set. Kara's got eyes on 3 approach vectors. We're ready. Emma checked her watch. 6:47 a.m., morning shift change. The hospital would be flooded with staff, patients, visitors. Perfect cover. They waited. At 8:23 a.m., Kara's voice crackled over the radio. I've got movement. 3 vehicles, military plates. heading for the main entrance. Emma keyed her mic. Confirmed. Everyone hold position. The vehicles parked. 6 men got out, all in plain clothes, but moving with military precision. They entered the hospital. Emma watched on the surveillance feed as they split up. 2 heading for the elevators, 2 for the stairs, 2 staying in the lobby. They're not hiding it, Voss muttered. Hayward's done being subtle. Emma watched them reach the ICU floor, watched them approach Calloway's room. The guard stepped forward, said something. One of the men shot him, suppressed pistol. The guard dropped. Now, Emma said. Reyes and his crew moved. Luis and Carlos came up from the stairwell, rifles ready. Kara took position on the roof across the street, scope tracking targets. Emma and Voss entered through the side, moving fast. The shooters breached Calloway's room, found it empty. Calloway had been moved 10 minutes ago, per Emma's instructions, to a storage room 2 floors down. The shooters realized the trap a second too late. Luis and Carlos opened fire from the stairwell. 2 shooters went down. The other 4 scattered, returning fire, trying to reach the elevators. Kara took one out through the window, clean headshot. The remaining 3 barricaded themselves in a patient room. Emma reached the ICU floor. Voss was right behind her. They moved down the hall, clearing corners. Emma saw the dead guard, stepped over him, reached the barricaded room. "Last chance," she shouted. "Come out unarmed and you live." Silence. Then gunfire. Rounds punched through the door. Emma ducked back, waited for the shooting to stop. Reyes appeared at the other end of the hall, grinning. "Want me to end this?" "No," Emma said. "I need one of them alive." Reyes sighed. "You're no fun." He pulled a flashbang, tossed it into the room. It detonated. Emma and Voss stormed in. 2 men were down, disoriented. The third was raising his weapon. Emma shot him in the leg. He screamed, dropped the gun. She grabbed him, slammed him against the wall. "Who sent you?" The man spat blood. "Go to hell!" Emma pressed the barrel of her rifle against his wounded leg. "Try again." He screamed, "Hayward! General Hayward! Where is he?" "I don't know." Emma pressed harder. "Where?" "Command post, Fort Monroe." "He's there now, coordinating." Emma let him drop, looked at Voss. "We've got him." Voss nodded. "Fort Monroe's 2 hours from here, heavily secured. We can't just walk in." "We don't have to," Emma said. "We just need to get close enough to transmit the evidence. Broadcast it everywhere, news, military channels, Congress. Bury him in sunlight." Reyes stepped into the room. "That's a suicide run." "Maybe," Emma said, "but it's the only play we've got." They regrouped in the parking garage. Kara had already packed up her gear. Luis and Carlos were loading weapons into the van. Voss was on his laptop, setting up a relay to transmit the files once they were in range. Emma checked her rifle, full mag. 2 spares. Not enough for what was coming, but it would have to do. Reyes clapped her on the shoulder. "Just like old times, huh?" "Old times got me killed," Emma said. "You got better." They loaded into the van, drove. Fort Monroe loomed ahead, a sprawling military installation surrounded by fences and guard towers. Emma watched it through binoculars, saw the patrols, saw the checkpoints, saw the command building at the center. "That's where Hayward is," Voss said. Emma lowered the binoculars. "Then that's where we're going." Reyes pulled the van into a wooded area half a mile from the perimeter. They geared up, checked weapons, ran through the plan one last time. Then Emma's phone rang. "Briggs," she answered. "Yeah?" "Hayes, don't do this. We've got people moving on Hayward through official channels. You don't need to—" "How long will that take?" Emma interrupted. Briggs hesitated. "Could be days, maybe weeks. He's got lawyers, political cover—" "People are dying now," Emma said. "I'm not waiting. You go in there. You'll start a war." "Good," Emma said, and hung up. She looked at Reyes, at Kara, at Luis and Carlos, at Voss. "Last chance to walk away," she said. None of them moved. Emma smiled. "Let's finish this." They moved toward the fence, shadows in the pre-dawn light. And somewhere inside Fort Monroe, General Marcus Hayward sat in his office, watching the same surveillance feeds Emma had seen, and picked up his phone. The call lasted 11 seconds. When Hayward hung up, his hand didn't shake. He'd been expecting this, planning for it. Emma Hayes was alive. and she was coming for him with everything she had left. Good. He'd buried her once. He could do it again. He pressed the intercom. Get me Colonel Brennan, now. 30 seconds later, Brennan walked in, stocky, balding, eyes like a reptile. Head of base security. Hayward's man through and through. We've got a breach incoming, Hayward said. Hayes and a crew. Maybe 6 people. They're going to try to get close enough to transmit data that'll bury us both. Brennan's expression didn't change. Rules of engagement? No survivors, and make it look like they fired first. Brennan nodded and left. Hayward turned back to the monitors, watched the perimeter feeds, watched the guard rotations. He'd spent 6 years building this network, eliminating threats, covering tracks. One dead nurse wasn't going to take it down. His phone buzzed. A text from an unlisted number. You made a mistake thinking I'd stay buried. Hayward smiled, typed back. You made a mistake coming here. He hit send, then deleted the conversation. Stood. Straightened his uniform. If Hayes wanted a war, he'd give her one she wouldn't survive. Outside the fence, Emma crouched in the tree line with Reyes, watching the guard towers through night vision. 2 guards per tower rotating every 20 minutes. Patrols running circuits every 15. Tight, but not perfect. We've got a 12-minute window between patrols on the east side, Reyes said. Cut the fence there, move fast, we can reach the admin building before they know we're inside. What about cameras? Emma asked. Voss was on his laptop, fingers flying. I can loop the feeds for 90 seconds. After that, they'll know something's off. 90 seconds to cover 200 yards, Kara said from her position in the trees. Doable, barely. Emma looked at the team. Luis and Carlos were checking their gear, breaching charges, smoke grenades, extra mags. Reyes had his rifle slung, a sidearm on his hip, and a knife strapped to his vest. Kara was already sighting in on the nearest guard tower. We go in quiet, Emma said. No shooting unless we have to. We get to the command building, Voss uploads the files, and we extract before they lock us down. And if they lock us down anyway? Luis asked. Then we fight our way out, Emma said. Luis grinned. Works for me. Voss finished typing. All right. Feeds are ready. Say the word. Emma took a breath, felt the old weight settle on her shoulders. She'd walked into worse, survived worse. This was just another op, just another mission, except it wasn't. This one was personal. Loop it, she said. Voss hit enter. The camera feeds froze. Emma moved. Reyes was right behind her, cutters in hand. They reached the fence in 40 seconds. Reyes clipped the chain link, pulled it back. Emma slipped through. The others followed. They crossed the open ground in a dead sprint, staying low, using shadows for cover. Emma's lungs burned. Her legs screamed. She ignored it, kept moving, hit the wall of the admin building and pressed flat. 60 seconds, Voss whispered. Emma moved along the wall, found a side door, locked. She pulled a pick set, worked the mechanism. It clicked open. She eased the door, checked the hallway. Empty. Gestured the team inside. They moved through the building like smoke. Hallways, stairwells, no alarms, no shouts. Emma counted doorways, mapped the layout in her head. The command center was on the 3rd floor, northwest corner. Hayward's office was adjacent. They reached the 3rd floor. Emma held up a fist. The team stopped. She heard voices ahead. 2 men, casual conversation, footsteps fading. She waited until silence, then moved. The command center door was reinforced, keypad locked. Voss stepped forward, pulled a small device from his pack, plugged it into the keypad. Numbers scrolled on the screen. 5 seconds. 10. The lock clicked green. Emma pushed the door open. The command center was dark, except for the glow of monitors. 2 techs sat at consoles, headphones on, backs to the door. Emma moved fast, quiet. Grabbed the first tech, hand over his mouth, and put him in a chokehold. He struggled for 3 seconds, then went limp. Reyes took the second one. They zip-tied both techs, gagged them, and dragged them into a supply closet. Voss sat at the main console, plugged in his drive. How long? Emma asked. 5 minutes to upload, then another 2 to broadcast across all channels. We don't have 7 minutes. Then buy me time. Emma moved to the window, looked out over the base, saw the patrols, saw the guard towers, saw lights starting to come on in the barracks. They'd been inside 3 minutes. Someone had noticed. Her radio crackled. Kara's voice, low and urgent. We've got movement. South side, 20 men, full gear, heading your way. Emma keyed her mic. Copy. Hold position. Do not engage unless they spot you. She turned to Reyes. We've got company. Reyes checked his rifle. How many? 20. Could be worse. Give it time. Voss was typing, eyes locked on the screen. 3 minutes. The door to the command center burst open. Emma spun, rifle up. Colonel Brennan stood in the doorway, sidearm drawn, 4 soldiers behind him. Don't move, Brennan said. Emma didn't lower her weapon. Neither did Reyes. The room went still, everyone aiming at everyone else. You're trespassing on a military installation, Brennan said. Put down your weapons and surrender, now. Not happening, Emma said. Brennan's eyes flicked to Voss at the console. What's he doing? Uploading the truth, Emma said. Every Black Op Hayward ran. Every team he burned. Every dollar he stole. It's all going public in 2 minutes. Brennan's jaw tightened. You're making a mistake. I'm fixing one. Brennan raised his sidearm, aimed at Emma's head. Last chance. Emma stared at him. Saw his finger on the trigger. Saw the soldiers behind him, tense, ready. She didn't blink. Shoot me, she said quietly, and you'll never stop the upload. It's automated. Kill me, kill Voss, kill everyone in this room. It still goes out. The only difference is whether you go down as an accomplice or a coward who followed orders. Brennan hesitated. Emma saw it, saw the doubt, saw the calculation. 2 minutes, Voss said. Brennan lowered his weapon, turned to his soldiers. Stand down. They stared at him. Sir, I said stand down. The soldiers lowered their rifles. Brennan holstered his sidearm, looked at Emma. Hayward's going to kill me for this. Hayward's going to prison, Emma said. You want to go with him? Keep following his orders. You want to walk away clean, get out of this room and pretend you never saw us. Brennan looked at Voss, at the screen, at the upload bar crawling toward completion. Then he turned and walked out. His soldiers followed. The door closed. Emma exhaled. Reyes lowered his rifle. That was lucky, he muttered. That was calculated, Emma said. Brennan's not loyal. He's scared. Hayward doesn't inspire loyalty, just fear. And fear breaks when the odds shift. 1 minute, Voss said. Emma moved to the console, watched the upload. 90%, 95. The files were going out to every major news outlet, every oversight committee, every branch of military intelligence. Hayward couldn't stop it, couldn't bury it. In 60 seconds, the world would know exactly what he'd done. The door exploded inward. Flash grenade. Emma hit the floor, blind, ears ringing. She heard boots, heard shouting, felt hands grab her, yank her up, a rifle barrel pressed against her spine. Don't move! Emma blinked through the spots in her vision, saw Reyes on his knees, hands behind his head, saw Luis and Carlos against the wall, weapons stripped, saw Voss still at the console, hands raised, and saw General Marcus Hayward walk into the room. He was calm, composed. Uniform crisp, stars gleaming. He looked at Emma like she was a bug he'd found in his kitchen. Valkyrie Six, he said. I have to admit, I'm impressed. Most people stay dead when I kill them. Emma didn't answer, just stared at him. Hayward glanced at the console. The upload bar read 100%. Broadcast initiated. He smiled. You think you've won, he said. You think exposing me will matter. But you're wrong. I've got friends in Congress, lawyers on retainer, senators who owe me favors. This will be buried in a week, and you'll be in a cell for the rest of your life. Maybe, Emma said. But everyone will know. Everyone will see what you are. And you'll spend the rest of your life watching over your shoulder, waiting for someone like me to finish what I started. Hayward's smile faded. He stepped closer. You were nothing. A medic, a grunt. I made you into a ghost, and you should have stayed that way. But you had to come back. Had to play hero, and now you're going to die for it. He raised his sidearm, aimed at Emma's head. The window shattered. Hayward staggered, blood blooming on his shoulder. He dropped the gun, clutching the wound. Kara's voice crackled over the radio. Target down. You're clear. Emma moved, grabbed Hayward's sidearm, put it to his head. On your knees. Hayward dropped, gasping, blood pouring through his fingers. The soldiers in the room froze, unsure. Emma looked at them. Your commanding officer just tried to execute an unarmed prisoner, she said. That makes him a war criminal. And that makes you complicit if you keep following him. So here's your choice. You can arrest him or you can join him. Decide now. One of the soldiers stepped forward. Young, maybe 25. He pulled out zip ties, moved toward Hayward. Sir, he said quietly, you're under arrest. Hayward's face twisted. You're making a mistake. The soldier zip-tied him, pulled him to his feet. No, sir, you made the mistake. Emma stepped back, watched as they led Hayward out, still bleeding, still protesting. The room emptied. Voss pulled the drive from the console. It's done, he said. Every file, every operation. It's out there. Emma nodded. Felt the weight lift. Felt 3 years of running, hiding, pretending finally come to an end. Reyes clapped her on the shoulder. Hell of a finish. It's not finished, Emma said. Not yet. They exfiltrated through the same route they'd entered. No resistance, no pursuit. By the time they reached the van, the base was in full lockdown. MPs everywhere, officers shouting orders, helicopters overhead. But none of it was aimed at them. It was aimed inward, at Hayward, at his network. Emma sat in the van, listening to the radio chatter. Arrests being made, evidence being secured, Hayward's allies scrambling, trying to distance themselves. It was collapsing, all of it. Reyes drove them back to Brookvale, dropped them at the truck stop. Emma shook his hand. You ever need anything? Reyes said. You call? I will. He drove off. Emma stood in the parking lot, the sun rising behind her, and pulled out her phone. Dialed Briggs. He answered on the first ring. Hayes, where are you? Safe. How's Kovac? Awake, asking for you. The whole base is in chaos. Hayward's in custody. Half a dozen officers are being detained. The files you uploaded, are they legit? Every word. DOD is launching a full investigation. Congress is calling for hearings. This is big, Hayes, bigger than anything we've seen in years. Emma closed her eyes. Good. You need to come in. Give a statement. Testify. I will, but not yet. Hayes, I've been dead for 3 years, Briggs. I need a minute to figure out how to be alive again. She hung up, turned to Voss. He was standing by the stolen sedan, looking exhausted. What now? He asked. Now you turn yourself in, Emma said. Cooperate. Tell them everything. You'll do time, but you'll live. Voss nodded. And you? I'm going back to Brookvale. Back to St. Alden. You're going back to the hospital? After everything? Emma looked at him. I've got unfinished business. She drove back alone. Parked in the St. Alden employee lot. Walked through the same doors she'd walked through 100 times before. The ER was busy. Morning rush, usual chaos. She saw Landry at the nurse's station, barking orders. She walked up to him. He didn't notice at first. Too busy yelling at a resident about an X-ray. Emma cleared her throat. Landry turned, annoyed. Saw her. His face went pale. Hayes, what are you? You're suspended. Not anymore, Emma said. I'm here to collect my things. And to tell you something. Landry stared at her. What? You were right, Emma said. I'm not just a nurse. I'm a combat medic. Multiple tours, classified operations. I've saved more lives in worse conditions than you'll ever see in this hospital. And for 8 months, I watched you strut around like you were some kind of hero while treating everyone below you like they were nothing. Landry's mouth opened, closed. No words came out. I didn't need your respect, Emma continued. I didn't need your approval. I just needed to do my job. But you couldn't even give me that. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to go back to your patients. You're going to do your job. And you're never going to talk down to another nurse again. Because if I hear that you have, I'll come back. And we'll have a very different conversation. Understood? Landry nodded. Mute. Emma turned and walked away. She went to the locker room, grabbed her things. On her way out, she passed the ICU. Saw Calloway in his bed, awake, watching the news on the wall-mounted TV. The headline read, Military Corruption Scandal Exposed. Hayward's face filled the screen. Calloway saw her in the doorway, smiled. Thank you. Emma nodded. Take care of yourself, Sergeant. She left the hospital, got in her car, drove to her apartment. Inside, she stood in the middle of the empty living room and realized she didn't have to live like this anymore. Didn't have to hide. Didn't have to be invisible. She pulled out her phone, dialed Kovac. "Hayes," he said, "I've been waiting for you to call." "I'm ready to come in," she said, "on one condition." "Name it." "I want my record corrected. I want my team honored. And I want every person who had a hand in Blacklight held accountable. No deals, no buried investigations, full transparency." Kovac was quiet for a moment. "That's going to take time." "I've got time." "All right, come to Fort Monroe tomorrow. We'll start the process." Emma hung up, sat on the couch, let the silence settle. For the first time in 3 years, it didn't feel suffocating. It felt like peace. The next day, she drove to Fort Monroe, passed through the gates with an official escort, walked into the same command building she'd infiltrated less than 48 hours ago. This time, she wasn't breaking in. She was being invited. Kovac met her in his office. His arm was in a sling, but he looked steady, strong. "You look better," Emma said. "I feel like hell," Kovac replied. "But I'll live, thanks to you." He gestured to a chair. Emma sat. Kovac pulled a folder from his desk, slid it across. "Your official record," he said. "Corrected. No longer KIA. Full honors restored. Back pay processed." Emma opened the folder, saw her name, saw her rank, saw the notation. Active duty, honorable service. She closed the folder, set it aside. "What about the rest?" she asked. "Hayward's facing court-martial. 12 counts of conspiracy, 7 counts of murder, 43 counts of fraud. He's done. So are his accomplices. We've arrested 9 officers, 6 contractors, and 2 congressional aides. The investigation's still ongoing, but we're dismantling the whole network." "And my team?" Kovac pulled another folder. "Their names are being added to the memorial wall. Full honors, posthumous commendations. Their families will be notified." Emma felt something crack inside her chest. Not pain, relief. She'd carried them for 3 years. Now they could rest. "Thank you," she said quietly. Kovac leaned back in his chair. "You've been through hell, Hayes, more than most people could survive. What are you going to do now?" Emma thought about it. Thought about the empty apartment. Thought about the hospital. Thought about the life she'd built in the shadows. "I don't know yet," she said, "but I'll figure it out." Kovac smiled. "You always do." She left his office, walked through the base, saw soldiers saluting her as she passed, saw respect in their eyes. She'd spent 8 months invisible. Now she couldn't hide if she tried. She drove back to Brookvale, stopped at St. Alden one more time, walked to the ICU. Calloway was being discharged, a nurse helping him into a wheelchair. "Hayes," he said when he saw her, "didn't think I'd see you again." "Just wanted to check on you before you left." Calloway grinned. "I'm good. Better than good. They're sending me stateside for recovery. After that, maybe a desk job. I'm done with convoys." "Smart move." Calloway looked at her. "What you did, taking on Hayward, exposing everything, that took guts." "It took a team," Emma said. "I didn't do it alone." "Still, you could have stayed hidden, stayed safe, but you didn't." Emma shrugged. "Some things are worth the risk." Calloway nodded. The nurse wheeled him toward the elevator. He looked back over his shoulder. "If you ever need anything, you call me. I owe you my life." "You don't owe me anything," Emma said. "Just live it well." The elevator doors closed. Emma stood in the hallway, alone. Then she heard footsteps behind her, turned, saw Diane Cortez, the hospital administrator. Cortez looked uncomfortable. "Ms. Hayes, do you have a moment?" Emma crossed her arms. "What do you want?" "I wanted to apologize," Cortez said, "for the suspension, for not listening. We were wrong." "Yes, you were." Cortez hesitated. "We'd like to offer you your position back, with a raise, and a formal commendation for your actions during the attack." Emma studied her, saw the desperation, saw the fear of a lawsuit, of bad press, of being on the wrong side of a story that was all over the news. "I'll think about it," Emma said. She walked past Cortez out of the hospital into the sunlight. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Impressive work. If you're looking for something more challenging than bedpans, call me." A phone number followed. Emma stared at the message. Then she deleted it. She'd had enough of shadow work, enough of ops and operators and people who lived in the gray. She wanted something real, something simple, Something that didn't involve guns or lies or bodies. She drove home, sat on her couch, opened her laptop, started browsing job listings, paramedic positions, trauma centers, disaster relief organizations, places where she could use her skills without the weight of black ops hanging over her. Her phone rang. Kovacs. Hayes, I forgot to mention something. What? The press wants to interview you. Multiple outlets. They want your side of the story. Emma closed her laptop. No. Emma, I'm not a hero, General. I'm someone who did what needed to be done. That's all. The public deserves to know. The public knows enough, Emma said. Hayward's going down. The truth is out. That's all that matters. Kovacs sighed. All right, but if you change your mind, I won't. She hung up, stood, walked to the window, looked out at the city. It was just another day in Brookvale. People going to work, kids going to school, life moving forward like nothing had happened. And maybe that was the point. Maybe that was the victory. Not the headlines, not the arrests, just the quiet knowledge that the system still worked, even when people like Hayward tried to break it. Emma turned away from the window, grabbed her keys, decided to take a drive, clear her head, figure out what came next. She was halfway to her car when her phone buzzed again. Another text. Same unknown number from before. Different message this time. We need to talk. About Karachi, about who really gave the order. Emma stopped walking, read the message again. Her chest went tight. She dialed the number. It rang once. A voice answered. Male. Distorted. Electronically altered. Valkyrie Six, glad you called. Who is this? Someone who was in the room when Hayward signed off on blacklight. Someone who knows he wasn't acting alone. Emma's blood went cold. Explain. Not over the phone. Meet me. Tonight. Pier 19, North Harbor. Come alone. Why should I trust you? Because Hayward's arrest isn't the end. It's just the beginning. And if you want the whole truth, you'll be there. The line went dead. Emma stood in the parking lot, phone still in her hand, and felt the ground shift under her feet. She'd thought it was over. Thought she'd won. Thought she could finally walk away. But the voice on the phone was right about one thing. Hayward had never worked alone. She got in her car, didn't go home, drove to the harbor instead 3 hours early, found Pier 19, abandoned warehouse district, industrial decay, the kind of place where bodies got dumped and nobody asked questions. She parked 2 blocks away, walked the perimeter, checked sight lines, looked for traps, found nothing. The area was dead. No cameras, no witnesses, just rusted shipping containers and seagulls fighting over garbage. At 9:47 p.m., headlights appeared. A black sedan driving slow. It parked near the pier. The engine cut. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. 50s, gray suit, federal bearing. Emma recognized him from news clips, recognized him from classified briefings she'd sat in on years ago. Deputy Director William Trent, CIA. Emma's hand went to her concealed carry. Trent raised his hands, showing them empty. I'm not armed, he said, and I'm not here to hurt you. Then why are you here? To offer you a deal. Emma didn't move. I'm listening. Trent walked closer, stopped 10 feet away. Hayward was a problem, an ambitious fool who got greedy and sloppy. But he was useful. He ran operations we couldn't touch officially. Dirty work, black budgets, the kind of things that keep the country safe but don't look good in congressional hearings. So you used him, Emma said. We all used him. DOD, CIA, NSA. He was a convenient tool, and when he got too dangerous, we let you take him down. Emma's jaw tightened. You set me up. We gave you the opportunity, Trent corrected. You did the rest, and now Hayward's going to spend the rest of his life in a cell. His network is dismantled. His operations are shut down. Everyone's happy. Except the people he killed. Trent's expression didn't change. Acceptable losses. In the grand scheme. Emma took a step forward. Is that what my team was? Acceptable losses? Trent met her eyes. Blacklight was compromised before you ever stepped foot in Karachi. Bad intel. Foreign assets. We couldn't pull you out without exposing our sources. So we let it play out. And you survived. Against all odds. You left us to die. We made a hard call, Trent said. And yes, people died, but the operation was contained. The intelligence was protected. And 3 years later, you became the perfect weapon to take down Hayward when we needed him gone. Emma stared at him, felt rage building in her chest. Hot, blinding. You think I'm going to let you walk away from this? She said quietly. I think you're going to take the deal I'm about to offer, Trent said. Because if you don't, everything you just accomplished disappears. Hayward gets a mistrial. Evidence gets suppressed. Your team's names get scrubbed from the memorial, and you go back to being a ghost, officially and permanently. Emma's hand tightened on her weapon. What deal? Trent pulled a folder from his jacket, held it out. Full exoneration. Your record stays clean. Your team gets honored. Hayward stays in prison. All of it. Guaranteed. In exchange for what? Your silence. You walk away. You don't dig deeper. You don't ask questions. You don't tell anyone about this conversation, and you let the system handle the rest. Emma didn't take the folder. And if I refuse? Then you'll spend the next 10 years fighting legal battles you can't win. Watching everything you fought for get buried. Watching the people who killed your team walk free. Is that really what you want? Emma looked at the folder, looked at Trent, saw the calculation in his eyes, the cold, clinical assessment. He wasn't threatening her. He was offering her a way out, a clean exit, a chance to walk away with some semblance of justice. But it was a lie, a comfortable lie. And she'd spent 3 years living a lie. She was done with lies. No deal, Emma said. Trent's expression hardened. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. She turned and walked away. Trent called after her. Hayes, you can't win this. You're one person. We're an institution. We'll bury you. Emma stopped, looked back over her shoulder. You already tried that once, she said. Didn't take. She got in her car and drove. Didn't look back. Didn't second guess. Just kept moving. Because Trent was wrong about one thing. She wasn't one person anymore. She had allies, evidence, momentum. And she had something Trent and people like him would never understand. She had nothing left to lose. The next morning, Emma walked into the offices of the Washington Chronicle, one of the largest newspapers in the country. Asked for the investigative editor. Got shown to a cluttered office where a woman in her 40s sat buried in paperwork. I'm Emma Hayes, she said, and I have a story for you. The editor looked up, recognized the name. Her eyes went wide. The Emma Hayes? The one from the Hayward scandal? That's me. The editor gestured to a chair. Sit. Talk. Emma sat, and she told her everything. Not just about Hayward, about Karachi, about Blacklight, about Trent, about the institutional rot that went deeper than one corrupt general. The editor listened, took notes, asked questions. And when Emma finished, she leaned back in her chair. This is big. Bigger than Hayward. If even half of what you're saying is true, it's all true, Emma said, and I can prove it. She handed over a flash drive. The editor plugged it into her computer, started scrolling through files. Her expression shifted from skepticism to shock to fury. How did you get this? Does it matter? The editor looked at her. This is going to start a war. Good, Emma said. I'm tired of fighting in the shadows. The story broke 3 days later. Front page. Above the fold, names, dates, operations. The full scope of institutional corruption laid bare for the public to see. Within hours, the story went viral. News networks picked it up. Congressional committees launched investigations. The CIA released a terse statement denying everything. Trent went into hiding, and Emma sat in her apartment, watching it unfold, knowing she'd just painted a target on her back that would never come off. Her phone rang. Kovac. What the hell did you just do? He said. What needed to be done? Emma, you just declared war on the intelligence community. They're going to come for you. Let them. Kovac was quiet for a moment. You know I can't protect you from this. I'm not asking you to. Then what are you asking? Nothing, Emma said. I'm just asking you to do your job. Investigate. Follow the evidence and let the chips fall where they may. Kovac sighed. You're either the bravest person I know or the craziest. Maybe both. She hung up, stood, walked to the window. Outside, the city was waking up, people heading to work, living their lives, unaware of the storm that was about to hit. But Emma wasn't unaware. She knew exactly what was coming, and for the first time in 3 years, she wasn't running. She was ready. Her phone buzzed one more time. Another unknown number, another text. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." Emma read it, then typed back, "No, I just stopped making them." She deleted the message, turned off her phone, and walked out into the morning light, ready for whatever came next. Because Emma Hayes had been dead once, and she wasn't about to let anyone bury her again. The first attempt came 72 hours after the story broke. Emma was walking out of a coffee shop 3 blocks from her apartment when she noticed the sedan. Black. Tinted windows, engine running. It had been parked there when she went in 20 minutes ago. Still there now. She kept walking. Didn't speed up. Didn't look back. Just moved with purpose, tracking reflections in storefront windows, counting exits. The sedan pulled out, followed at a distance. Emma turned left into an alley. Narrow. Dumpsters on both sides. Dead end at the back. She walked halfway down, then stopped. Turned around. The sedan pulled in behind her, blocked the exit. 2 men got out. Suits, earpieces, federal badges clipped to their belts, but Emma didn't buy it. Real feds didn't corner people in alleys. "Emma Hayes," the first one said, "you need to come with us." "Show me a warrant," Emma said. "This isn't that kind of conversation. Then we don't have anything to talk about." The second man reached for her arm. Emma moved, twisted his wrist, hyperextended the elbow, and put him face first into the dumpster. The first man went for his weapon. Emma was faster, kicked his knee, heard it crunch, and had his gun in her hand before he hit the ground. She pointed it at him. "Who sent you?" He gasped, clutching his leg. "You're making this worse. Who sent you?" "You know who." Emma dropped the magazine, cleared the chamber, and threw the gun into the dumpster, pulled out her phone, took pictures of both men, their faces, their badges, their license plate. "Tell Trent I'm not going quietly," she said, "and next time he sends someone, make sure they're actually good at this." She walked out of the alley, called Kovacs. "They just tried to grab me," she said when he answered. "Who?" "Trent's people, 2 of them. I've got photos. I'm sending them to you now." "Emma, you can't keep doing this. Every time you escalate." "I didn't escalate. I defended myself. There's a difference." Kovacs sighed. "Where are you now?" "Heading somewhere public, somewhere with cameras." "Good. Stay there. I'm sending a protective detail." "I don't need—" "Emma, let me help you." She hesitated, then nodded, even though he couldn't see it. "All right, but they stay out of my way." "Deal." She hung up, walked to the nearest police station, sat in the lobby for 3 hours until Kovacs' people arrived. 2 MPs in plain clothes, professional, quiet. They didn't ask questions, just took up positions and watched the doors. Emma leaned back in the uncomfortable plastic chair and realized this was her life now. Looking over her shoulder, waiting for the next attempt. Living in the crosshairs of people who had the resources and authority to make her disappear. But she'd known that when she walked into the Chronicle. Known it when she handed over the files. Known it when she refused Trent's deal. Some fights were worth the cost. The hearings started 2 weeks later. Senate Intelligence Committee. Closed session. Emma sat at a long table facing a panel of senators, their aides lined up behind them like chess pieces. Cameras were banned, but the room was packed with staffers, legal counsel, and people Emma didn't recognize but knew were CIA. Senator Patricia Harlow, committee chair, called the session to order. She was mid-60s, sharp eyes, a reputation for not taking nonsense from anyone. "Ms. Hayes," Harlow began, "thank you for coming." "I was subpoenaed," Emma said. "Didn't have much choice." A few staffers chuckled. Harlow didn't smile. "You've made serious allegations against senior intelligence officials. Allegations that, if true, represent a catastrophic breach of oversight and accountability. We're here to determine the facts." "The facts are in the files I provided," Emma said. "Operation Blacklight, the convoy ambush, Hayward's black budget operations, all documented." Senator Graham, a hawk from Texas, leaned forward. "And how exactly did you obtain these files?" "Does it matter?" "It matters if you committed a crime to get them." Emma met his eyes. "I committed treason by surviving when I was supposed to die. Is that the crime you're worried about?" The room went silent. Graham's face reddened. Harlow intervened. "Ms. Hayes, we're not here to attack you. We're here to understand what happened, To hold the right people accountable. Emma took a breath, softened slightly. Then hold them accountable. Hayward's in custody, but he's not the top of the chain. Deputy Director Trent knew about blacklight, authorized it, and when it went sideways, he buried the evidence and marked my team KIA to cover his tracks. That's a serious accusation, Harlow said. It's the truth. Do you have proof? Emma pulled a flash drive from her pocket, slid it across the table. Recordings, emails, transfer authorizations, all linking Trent to blacklight and a dozen other operations. He tried to buy my silence 2 weeks ago. I recorded that conversation too. Harlow picked up the drive, looked at it like it might explode. We'll need to verify this. Verify all you want, Emma said. But while you're doing that, Trent's destroying evidence and intimidating witnesses. He's had 2 weeks since the story broke. How much longer are you going to give him? Senator Kim, a progressive from California, spoke up. Ms. Hayes, what do you want to see happen here? Emma looked at her. I want the people who killed my team to face justice. I want the operations they ran exposed. I want oversight restored, and I want to make sure this never happens again. That's a tall order, Kim said. Then get started. The hearing lasted 6 hours. Emma answered every question, provided every detail, laid out the timeline, the players, the money trails. By the end, half the senators looked shell-shocked. The other half looked furious. Harlow adjourned the session. We'll reconvene tomorrow. Ms. Hayes, you're dismissed. Emma stood, walked out. The MPs were waiting in the hallway. So was Briggs. How'd it go? He asked. About as well as being interrogated can go. Briggs smiled. Kovac wanted me to tell you he's proud of you. Tell him I don't need his pride. I need him to keep digging. He is. We all are. But Hayes... Briggs hesitated. You know this isn't going to end quietly, right? Trent's got powerful friends. Even if the committee recommends charges, the DOJ might not prosecute. Then I'll go to the press again, and again, until someone listens. That's a long fight. I've got time. Briggs nodded. They walked out of the building together. Outside, protesters had gathered. Some held signs supporting Emma. Others called her a traitor. The crowd was shouting, pushing against barriers. Emma ignored them, got in the waiting car. The MPs drove her back to a safe house Kovac had arranged, a nondescript townhouse in Arlington with reinforced doors and surveillance cameras. Emma sat in the living room, staring at the wall, and felt the exhaustion hit. Not physical, deeper. The kind that came from carrying weight too long. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then curiosity won. Hayes, you're making a lot of noise. The voice was familiar. Voss. Where are you? Emma asked. Witness protection, new name, new life, testifying next week. Good. I saw the hearing coverage. You were impressive. I was honest. Same thing, in your case. Voss paused. Listen, I just wanted to say thank you for giving me a chance to make this right. I know I don't deserve it. You're doing the work, Emma said. That's what matters. Yeah, well, good luck. I hope you get what you're after. You too. He hung up. Emma set the phone down, closed her eyes, tried to sleep, couldn't. The next morning, she was back at the hearing. More questions, more testimony. This time, Trent's lawyers were present. They objected to everything, called Emma's credibility into question, tried to paint her as a disgruntled former employee with an axe to grind. Emma sat through it, didn't flinch, didn't argue, just waited for them to finish. When they did, Harlow turned to Emma. Do you have a response to these allegations? Yeah, Emma said. I was declared dead 3 years ago. I had no reason to come back, no reason to expose any of this. I could have stayed hidden, lived quietly, but I didn't, because the people who killed my team are still out there, still operating, and if I don't stop them, who will? The room went quiet. One of Trent's lawyers stood. Your Honor. This isn't a courtroom, Harlow snapped. And you're not a judge. Sit down. The lawyer sat. Harlow looked at Emma. Thank you, Ms. Hayes. That'll be all for today. Emma left. On her way out, a staffer handed her a note. She unfolded it in the car. It read, Keep pushing. We're listening. Senator Kim Emma tucked the note in her pocket, felt a flicker of hope. 3 days later, the committee released its preliminary findings. The report was damning. Trent was named. So were 4 other senior officials. Recommendations for criminal prosecution, calls for systemic reform. It wasn't everything Emma wanted, but it was a start. The DOJ announced an investigation the same day. Trent was placed on administrative leave. His security clearance was suspended. He released a statement denying all wrongdoing. Emma watched the press conference from the safe house and knew he was lying. But for the first time, people were listening. The days blurred together after that. More hearings, more depositions. Emma gave testimony to 3 different oversight bodies, 2 inspector general offices, and 1 grand jury. She repeated the same facts over and over until they stopped feeling like memories and started feeling like a script she'd memorized. At night, she sat in the safe house and watched the news coverage. Analysts debated whether she was a whistleblower or a traitor. Pundits argued about national security versus transparency. Politicians used her story to score points with their bases. Emma turned off the TV, didn't care what they called her, didn't care about the narrative, just cared about the outcome. 4 months after the hearings began, the indictments came down. William Trent, 3 colonels, 2 contractors, 1 sitting senator, all charged with conspiracy, fraud, obstruction of justice. The senator resigned within hours. The contractors fled the country. Trent hired the most expensive legal team in Washington and prepared for trial. Emma received a call from the lead prosecutor, a woman named Jennifer Oakes, mid-40s, with a reputation for winning impossible cases. "We're going to need you to testify," Oakes said, "at trial, in open court." I figured, it's going to be rough. Trent's team will tear into you. They'll try to discredit everything you've said, make you look unstable, unreliable. Let them try. Oakes paused. "You sound confident." "I'm tired," Emma said. "But I'm ready. When do we start?" "Jury selection begins in 6 weeks. Trial starts 2 weeks after that." "I'll be there." Emma used those 6 weeks to prepare. She reviewed every document, every recording, every piece of evidence, practiced her testimony with Oakes's team, learned how to stay calm under cross-examination, how to answer questions without giving the defense ammunition. Briggs stopped by the safe house one afternoon, brought coffee and sandwiches. "You doing okay?" he asked. "Define okay." "Not falling apart," Emma smiled. "Then, yeah, I'm okay." Briggs sat across from her. "You know, a lot of people would have walked away by now, taken whatever deal they could get and disappeared. But you're still here, still fighting. What else would I do?" "Live your life. Move on." Emma shook her head. "I can't move on. Not while they're still out there. Not while the system that let this happen is still broken." "You really think you can fix it?" "No," Emma said, "but I can make it harder for them to break it again." Briggs nodded. "For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Thanks." He left an hour later. Emma went back to reviewing files, lost herself in the details, in the evidence, in the slow, grinding process of building a case that couldn't be ignored. The trial started on a cold Tuesday in February, federal courthouse in Washington. Emma arrived early, flanked by MPs. The media was everywhere. Cameras, reporters, satellite trucks. She pushed through without comment, went inside, sat in the witness waiting room until they called her name. When she walked into the courtroom, every eye turned to her. The gallery was packed. Trent sat at the defense table in a tailored suit, looking calm and composed. His lawyers flanked him like bodyguards. Emma took the stand, raised her right hand, swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor stood. "Ms. Hayes, can you please state your name and occupation for the record?" "Emma Hayes. I'm a registered nurse and former combat medic." "And how long did you serve in the military?" 8 years, 2 tours overseas." "What was your final rank?" "Sergeant, medical specialist." Oakes walked her through the basics. Her service record, her deployment to the Middle East, Operation Blacklight, the ambush, the aftermath. Emma told it all. Calm, clinical, no emotion, just facts. Then Oakes got to the heart of it. "Ms. Hayes, did Deputy Director William Trent have knowledge of Operation Blacklight before it was executed?" "Yes." "How do you know this?" "Because he told me, in a phone conversation 2 weeks after the Washington Chronicle published the first story. He admitted that Blacklight was compromised, that he knew the intel was bad, and that he authorized the mission anyway because the alternative was exposing intelligent sources. And what happened to your team? Emma's voice didn't waver. They died. All 12 of them. Because we walked into an ambush that could have been prevented. And what happened to you? I was declared Call A. My service record was altered. My death was staged to cover up the operation. Oakes paused. Let that sink in. And did Director Trent offer you anything in exchange for your silence? Yes. Full reinstatement, corrected records, honors for my team, all of it, in exchange for not pursuing further investigation. And what did you say? I said no. Oakes nodded. Thank you, Ms. Hayes. No further questions. Trent's lead attorney stood. His name was Douglas Farrell, silver hair, expensive watch, smile like a shark. Ms. Hayes, he began, you claim to have been declared dead, but here you are, very much alive. How do you explain that? I survived the ambush, went into hiding, lived under a different identity for 3 years. A different identity? Interesting. And during those 3 years, did you receive any psychiatric treatment? No. Any therapy? Counseling? No. So you're telling this court that you survived a traumatic combat experience, faked your own death, lived in hiding for 3 years, and never once sought professional help? That's correct. Farrell smiled. Ms. Hayes, isn't it possible that the trauma you experienced has affected your perception of events? That you're seeing conspiracies where none exist? Emma looked at him. I have recordings, documents, financial records, all corroborating my testimony. This isn't perception. It's fact. Recordings that you obtained through questionable means, recordings that prove everything I've said. Farrell's smile faded. Ms. Hayes, you're not a lawyer. You're not an investigator. You're a nurse. What makes you think you're qualified to interpret classified intelligence operations? I'm qualified, Emma said, because I was there, because I lived it, because I watched my team die, and because I spent 3 years piecing together why. So yeah, I'm qualified. The courtroom went silent. Farrell looked at his notes, changed tactics. Ms. Hayes, isn't it true that you hold significant animosity toward the intelligence community? Yes? And isn't it possible that this animosity has motivated you to make false accusations against my client? No. How can you be sure? Emma leaned forward. Because if I wanted to make false accusations, I would have done it 3 years ago. I would have gone public the moment I got out of Karachi. But I didn't. I waited. I gathered evidence. I built a case. Because I knew people like you would try to discredit me. And I wanted to make sure that when I came forward, there was no room for doubt. Farrell stared at her, tried one more angle. Ms. Hayes, you were suspended from your position at St. Alden Medical Center, weren't you? Yes, for overstepping your authority, for saving a patient's life. But you were suspended nonetheless. Doesn't that suggest a pattern of behavior? A tendency to disregard rules and authority? Emma smiled, cold, sharp. I disregard rules when they're wrong, when they put people at risk, when they're designed to protect the guilty instead of the innocent. If that's a pattern, then yeah, I'm guilty. Farrell sat down. No further questions. Emma stepped down, walked out of the courtroom, didn't look at Trent, didn't need to. The trial lasted 4 weeks. Voss testified. So did Briggs. So did 3 former operatives who'd worked under Hayward. The evidence piled up. Financial records, mission logs, recorded conversations. By the end, Trent's defense was in shambles. The jury deliberated for 5 days. Emma waited in a hotel room, pacing, checking her phone every 10 minutes. Finally, Oakes called. They're back, she said. Verdict in 20 minutes. Emma drove to the courthouse, sat in the gallery, watched the jury file in. None of them looked at Trent. The foreman stood, read the verdict. Guilty. All counts. Emma closed her eyes, felt 3 years of weight lift off her shoulders. Trent showed no emotion, just sat there, staring straight ahead. The judge set sentencing for 6 weeks out. Court adjourned. Outside, the media went into a frenzy. Emma walked past them without comment, got in the car, drove back to the safe house. She sat on the couch, pulled out her phone, dialed Kovac. We won, she said when he answered. I heard. Congratulations. It doesn't feel like I thought it would. It never does, Kovac said. Justice is messy, complicated. But you got it. That's what matters. Emma was quiet for a moment. What happens now? Now you figure out what comes next. You've spent 3 years fighting this fight. Time to decide what you want to fight for. Emma nodded. Yeah, I think I know. Sentencing came 6 weeks later. The judge gave Trent 25 years, no parole. He was let out in handcuffs, still showing no emotion. Emma watched him go, felt nothing, no satisfaction, no anger, just done. She left the courthouse, drove back to Brookvale, stopped at St. Alden, walked into Cortez's office. I'm taking the job, Emma said, but not as a floor nurse. I want to build a training program, emergency preparedness, crisis response, real-world scenarios. Cortez stared at her. That's ambitious? You said you wanted to make amends. This is how. Cortez thought about it, then nodded. All right, I'll allocate the budget. You build the program. Emma shook her hand. Deal. She started the next week, set up a training room, brought in equipment, designed scenarios based on everything she'd seen, mass casualty events, active shooters, natural disasters, combat medicine adapted for civilian use. She recruited nurses, paramedics, residents, taught them how to think under pressure, how to make hard calls, how to save lives when the system broke down. Landry showed up one day, stood in the doorway of the training room watching. Emma saw him, walked over. Can I help you? I wanted to apologize, Landry said, for how I treated you. I was wrong. Emma studied him, saw genuine regret in his eyes. You were, but you're here now. That counts. I'd like to join the program, if you'll have me. Emma considered it, then nodded. Show up on time, listen, and check your ego at the door. Landry smiled. I can do that. He became one of her best students. So did Klein, the young resident who'd bumped into her on her first day. Emma watched them learn, watched them grow, watched them become the kind of providers who saw everyone as worth saving. 6 months later, the program was featured in a medical journal. Other hospitals started calling, asking for consultations, asking Emma to train their staff. She said yes to some, no to others, stayed selective, stayed focused. Because this wasn't about building an empire, it was about making sure the next person in her position had the tools to survive. One afternoon, she was running a simulation when Calloway walked in. He was in civilian clothes, walking with a slight limp, but looking strong. Sergeant, Emma said, surprised, what are you doing here? Heard you were doing something interesting. Thought I'd check it out. Emma smiled. You thinking about a career change? Maybe. Desk job's killing me. Thought I might go back to school. Emergency medicine. Figured I already know what the worst looks like. Might as well help people through it. You'd be good at it, Emma said. Calloway looked around the training room, at the nurses running scenarios, at the equipment, at the organized chaos. You built this? Yeah. It's impressive. It's necessary. Calloway nodded. Mind if I sit in? Watch for a bit? Go ahead. He stayed for 3 hours. At the end, he came up to her. I want in. Whatever this is, I want to be part of it. Emma extended her hand. Welcome to the team. A year after Trent's conviction, Emma stood in front of a congressional committee again. This time, she wasn't testifying, she was presenting a proposal for a national emergency preparedness program, hospital-based, community-integrated, designed to save lives when systems failed. Senator Kim was still on the committee. She smiled when Emma finished. This is exactly the kind of initiative we need, Kim said. I'll sponsor the funding bill personally. The bill passed 4 months later. Federal grants, national rollout. Emma's program became a template. Hospitals across the country started adopting it, training thousands of providers, saving lives they wouldn't have saved otherwise. Emma stayed in Brookvale, stayed at St. Alden, didn't chase fame, didn't do interviews, just kept working, kept training, kept building. 2 years after everything started, she was walking through the hospital when she passed the memorial wall in the main lobby, photos of staff who'd gone above and beyond. She stopped, saw a new plaque. Emma Hayes, combat medic, nurse, trainer, for extraordinary courage and dedication to saving lives. She stared at it. Felt something warm and complicated in her chest. Not pride, recognition, the kind that came from being seen. Really seen. A hand touched her shoulder. She turned, saw Landry. "You earned that," he said. "We all did," Emma replied. She walked away. Out of the hospital, into the parking lot, the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and gold. She leaned against her car and pulled out her phone, scrolled through her contacts, found Reyes. "Hayes," he answered. "Long time." "Too long. You busy?" "Always. Why?" "I'm thinking about expanding the program. Could use someone with your expertise." Reyes laughed. "You want me to teach hospital staff?" "I want you to teach them how to survive when things go sideways. You're the best I know." Reyes was quiet for a moment. "All right, I'm in. When do we start?" "Next month." "See you then." Emma hung up, looked at the hospital, at the lights in the windows, at the ambulances pulling in, at the endless cycle of crisis and response. This was her life now. Not hiding, not running, not pretending to be someone she wasn't, just doing the work, saving lives, training others to do the same. She got in her car, drove home, walked into her apartment. It wasn't empty anymore. She'd bought furniture, hung pictures, made it a place worth living in. She sat on the couch, turned on the news, saw a report about another corruption scandal, another investigation, another person in power being held accountable. The system was still broken, still imperfect, still full of people who'd abuse it if given the chance. But it was also full of people fighting to fix it, people like Kovacs, like Briggs, like Senator Kim, like the nurses she trained every day. Emma turned off the TV, pulled up her laptop, started writing. Not testimony, not reports. A training manual. Something concrete. Something that would outlast her. Something that would help the next generation of providers save lives in impossible situations. She wrote for 3 hours. Lost herself in the work. In the details. In the knowledge that this mattered. That what she was building would help people she'd never meet. People who'd face crises she couldn't imagine. Her phone buzzed. A text from Callaway. "First day of med school tomorrow. Thanks for pushing me to do this." Emma smiled, typed back, "You're going to be great. Remember, stay calm, trust your training, and never let them see you panic." She set the phone down, kept writing. 3 years after Trent's conviction, the program had expanded to 42 states, over 200 hospitals, thousands of trained providers. Emma had built a team of instructors, Reyes, Callaway, Kara, even Landry. They traveled, taught, shared what they knew. Emma stayed in Brookvale, stayed at St. Alden, but she traveled too. Gave lectures, ran workshops, met with hospital administrators and government officials and anyone who'd listen. One evening, she was giving a keynote address at a medical conference in Chicago. 500 people in the audience, doctors, nurses, administrators, paramedics. She stood at the podium, no notes. Just spoke from the heart. "I spent 8 months being invisible," she said. "Working in a hospital where nobody saw me, where I was just another pair of hands, another body filling a shift, and I let them see me that way. Because it was easier, safer, because I'd learned that being seen meant being targeted." She paused, looked out at the audience. "But here's what I learned. Being invisible doesn't keep you safe. It just makes you easy to ignore, easy to dismiss, easy to sacrifice when it's convenient. And the only way to change that is to make yourself impossible to ignore. To stand up, to speak out, to fight for what's right, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." The room was silent. "You're not just nurses or doctors or medics," Emma continued. "You're the people who show up when everything goes wrong, when the system fails, when the world falls apart. You're the ones who save lives, and that matters. You matter. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like you don't." The applause started slow, then built. By the time she left the stage, the entire room was on its feet. Afterward, people lined up to talk to her, to shake her hand, to tell her their stories. Emma listened to everyone, remembered every name, because that was the point. To see people, to recognize them, to validate the work they did. Late that night, back in her hotel room, Emma sat by the window, looked out at the city lights, thought about how far she'd come, from Karachi to Brookvale, from ghost to voice, from invisible to impossible to ignore. Her phone rang. Kovac. Saw your speech, he said. It's making the rounds on social media. Good. You've built something real, Hayes, something that's going to outlast all of us. Emma smiled. That's the idea. I'm proud of you. Thanks, General. You ever think about what comes next, after this? Emma thought about it. No. This is it. This is what I want to do, for as long as I can. Then keep doing it, Kovac said. The world needs more people like you. They talked for a few more minutes, then hung up. Emma sat in the silence, felt the peace of knowing she'd found her place, her purpose, her fight. 5 years after Trent's conviction, Emma was invited to speak at the memorial service for her team. Their names had been added to the wall at Arlington. Their families had been notified. The truth had been told. Emma stood in front of the gathered crowd, family members, veterans, active duty personnel, government officials. She looked at the names on the wall, 12 of them, 12 people who'd trusted her, who'd followed her into hell. They deserved better, Emma said. Better intel, better support, better leadership. They deserved to come home, and they didn't. Because people in power made decisions that prioritized politics over lives, that prioritized secrecy over safety, that prioritized convenience over truth. She paused. Let that settle. But their deaths weren't meaningless, because we've used them. Used their sacrifice to expose corruption, to demand accountability, to force change. And because of them, the system that failed them is different now. Not perfect, but better. And that's their legacy. Not how they died, but what their deaths accomplished. The families thanked her afterward, hugged her, told her she'd given them closure. Emma accepted their gratitude, carried their grief, added it to her own, because some weight never got lighter. You just learned to carry it better. 10 years after everything began, Emma sat in her office at St. Alden. The training program was in its 8th year, self-sustaining, growing. She'd handed off day-to-day operations to Calloway, who'd finished medical school and come back to run the program full-time. Emma still taught, still trained, but she'd stepped back, let others lead, let the work continue without her at the center. She was reviewing curriculum updates when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, then answered. Hayes. Ms. Hayes, this is Director Sarah Chen from the Department of Defense. Do you have a moment? Emma sat up. I'm listening. We're launching a new initiative, military to civilian transition support, helping veterans reintegrate, find purpose, build careers. And we'd like you to lead it. Emma was quiet for a moment. Why me? Because you've done it. You've built something from nothing. You've proven that the skills we learn in combat have value in civilian life. And you've shown that the transition doesn't have to be a dead end. It can be a new beginning. Emma thought about it. Thought about all the veterans she'd met over the years. The ones struggling, the ones lost, the ones who felt invisible. What's the scope? She asked. National, full federal backing, whatever resources you need. Emma smiled. When do we start? The program launched 6 months later. Emma built it the same way she'd built everything else, from the ground up, with people who'd lived it, with veterans who understood the transition, who could speak to the struggle, who could offer real support. It worked. Within 2 years, placement rates doubled. Suicide rates among transitioning veterans dropped. Emma traveled the country, met with veterans, listened to their stories, built programs tailored to their needs, and she never forgot where she'd come from, never forgot the years of hiding, the years of being invisible, the years of feeling like she didn't matter. Because that was the fuel. That was the fire that kept her going. 15 years after Karachi, Emma stood in the White House. The president was presenting her with the Presidential Medal of Freedom for her work with veterans, for her contributions to emergency medicine, for her courage in exposing corruption. Emma accepted the medal, shook the president's hand, gave a short speech thanking her team, thanking the people who'd supported her, thanking the system for finally working the way it was supposed to. Afterward, reporters asked for interviews. Emma declined. She'd said everything she needed to say. She left the White House, walked out into the afternoon sun, and realized she'd done it. She'd taken the worst moment of her life and turned it into something that mattered, something that helped people, something that would outlast her. That night, Emma sat in her apartment in Brookvale, the same apartment she'd moved into 12 years ago, the same place she'd hidden, the same place she'd rebuilt herself. But it wasn't the same anymore. Neither was she. She pulled out her laptop, opened a new document, started writing, not a manual, not a report, a memoir. Her story, from Karachi to here, from ghost to voice, from invisible to impossible to ignore. She wrote late into the night. Wrote about the fear, the anger, the loss, the fight, the victory. Wrote about what it meant to be dismissed, to be underestimated, to be left for dead, and what it meant to come back. Because that was the real story. Not the corruption, not the scandal, not the trials or the medals or the programs. The real story was that Emma Hayes had been nothing, had been nobody, had been invisible, and she'd refused to stay that way. She'd stood up, spoken out, fought back, and won. Not because she was special, not because she was chosen, but because she decided that she mattered, that her team mattered, that the truth mattered, and that was a decision anyone could make. Emma finished writing as the sun came up. She saved the document, sent it to a publisher, then closed her laptop, walked to the window, looked out at Brookvale waking up, at the people starting their days, at the hospital in the distance, lights already on, staff already working. And Emma Hayes smiled, because she'd been dead once, had been erased, had been forgotten. But she'd come back, and she'd made damn sure no one would forget her again. Not because she needed recognition, but because the people who came after her needed to know it was possible. That you could be dismissed, underestimated, left for dead, and still win. That was the message, that was the legacy, not the medals, not the programs, not the headlines. Just the simple, undeniable truth that one person standing up and refusing to be silenced could change everything. Emma grabbed her keys, headed out. She had a training session in 2 hours, a meeting with the veterans program after that, a lecture in the evening. The work never stopped, never ended. There was always someone else who needed help, someone else who felt invisible, someone else who needed to know they mattered, and Emma would be there, for as long as she could, for as long as it took. Because that was who she was now, not Valkyrie Six, not a ghost, not invisible, just Emma Hayes. And that was enough. It was everything.